Okay, I think we're ready. You're ready, Agnes?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, awesome. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Nicole. I'm the education manager for the Eastern Sierra Interpretive Association. Our mission at ESIA is to provide high quality interpretive products, exhibits, and programs. So a big thank you to you who were able to donate or were able to become a member. It helps us to continue our mission and provide really cool, awesome presentations like this one. Also, a big thank you to Mammoth Lakes Recreation and the Measure U grant. Today, we are joined by Agnes Vianzon of the Eastern Sierra Conservation Corps. Agnes is the founder and executive director of ESCC. ESCC is a development and leadership program committed to building a more inclusive community whose mission is to provide opportunities for young adults from priority populations to experience transformational and immersive outdoor experiences. I'm going to hand it off to Agnes, and she's going to share some amazing stories and some awesome photos with us and some of the great things that ESCC does in the Eastern Sierra. So thank you, Agnes. Thank you for joining us.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Nicole, and everyone at ESIA for having me on tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining in on this, I think, Thursday evening. So I'll go ahead and just pull up, make sure the tech's working here, and pull up the presentation. Great. So again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I see some former ESCC crew leaders that are here, and so just a heads up, don't be shy if you would like to share some of your story as I go through this. I would like to let everyone know that I am coming to you from the ancestral and present lands of the Eastern and Western Mono Monachi and Numu, otherwise known as Mammoth Lakes. So tonight I'm here to talk about Eastern Sierra Conservation Corps, or ESCC. Discover the range of your potential is our motto, and this is a photo of LeConte Canyon in Kings Canyon National Park. And so I'll start off, the origin stories of ESCC really has a lot to do with my story and how the sort of pieces fell together that led me to be sitting in front of you today. And that the experiences that I had as I was journeying through various core programs and AmeriCorps programs, that I was also seeking something different during that. And that's sort of part of how ESCC, the idea of it, was born. And so, yeah, I'm excited to introduce you all to how ESCC came to be, show you a few photos of me as a kid, share with you what makes us a little bit different, and talk about our programs and our objectives. Okay, so here we go. Great. So, I grew up in Southern California, and this first photo is my brother and I playing in the Merced River in Yosemite National Park. Growing up, sort of road trips were the majority of family vacations that we were able to do. That's me in the Grand Canyon. I definitely did not have an appreciation, or as much of an appreciation, for these places when, as in these photos as I do now. For sure, it was more of a, why are we doing this? Where? And being in the car for too long. But these are my folks. And so on the left is that same trip. That's my folks in Yosemite Valley and the Merced River. And this is a photo on the right of them in Joshua Tree National Park actually last weekend. So they have been waiting and were lucky enough to get their vaccine shots and felt that they could travel for the first time in a long time. And I thought it was just really cool to point out, this is something that they literally have been doing for a long time, is visiting public land spaces, and something they still enjoy. And I think that part of what they enjoy was passed on to me. And so after, I graduated from UCSB in environmental studies, and it was sort of a rocky road to get there, but I did receive a degree. I did get a job. I worked as an environmental planner, and then I decided to take a gap year. And as I was searching, this is prior to Google, so I don't know how I found it, but as I was searching, I happened upon the California Conservation Corps, which you'll hear me refer to as the CCC. And so the California Conservation Corps has this 5-month AmeriCorps program in 6 different national parks and forests. I applied. I, at the time, was working here in Mammoth, came here for my one ski bum season, and never left. So I found this program. I had never hiked, never backpacked, really, car camped maybe once or twice, and that was it. And then off I go with all the wrong gear to live in this national park for 22 weeks. And so even after that experience, I thought that was really great. I'm gonna go back and, go to grad school, find a job again. But the timing worked out perfect to come back to Mammoth and work at a bar and snowboard and ski. And then in the summertime, I could go back and work for the National Park Service. And so that became my rotation for really, one gap year turned into just one more season, and 10 years later, I was still doing that. And then I just kept promoting through both of those very different seasonal jobs. So I worked my way up to supervising a supervisor job on the mountain, and I moved into a leadership position with the California Conservation Corps. So I was able to lead 4 crews through that same 5-month experience. And so these are mostly folks like me, or some folks like me, that didn't have a ton of backpacking, camping, trail work experience. This is a program where you get to learn all of that. And then continuing on with that program, I moved into a leadership position, becoming the assistant director. And so that, so then I got to recruit and interview and select and train members and incoming crew leaders of this program. And I think it was still is one of the best jobs that you could possibly have. I mean, you are a state employee, you have a state vehicle, and you travel around all of California to all different national forests, national parks, and state parks to visit crews. And the whole time that I was doing that was just, a little voice, a little light in the background that just kept saying that this is definitely work that I'm passionate about, that I want to continue to do, but maybe in a little bit of a different way. And so, as I was continuing on in these seasons and working with all these groups of young adults, something kept pushing that. And so I decided to leave. And I bought the How to Start a Nonprofit in California book. I went chapter to chapter. I have some good friends, including a lawyer friend. Solicited some guidance from some good friends and local folks. Kathy Copeland, Laura Beardsley, Stacy Corliss, who serves on our board of directors. Started fundraising. Started to figure this out. And at the same time, I ran back to the mountains. I went for a short season. I got to work on a National Park Service crew again, and I spent 6 weeks at Evolution Meadow, if anyone has ever been there, which is an incredible place. And so took that time to sort of figure things out, thinking it would be a few years to sort of lay this groundwork and get enough money together and build relationships. But the very next season, the very next summer, we put our first boots on the ground. And so ESCC partnered with the Sequoia Parks Conservancy and the Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park, and we put the first ever all-women trail crew to serve in the park. And so that's a photo of that very first crew. And then off we went. So, conservation corps, and it's been in the news recently with the new administration talking about a climate corps, the civilian conservation corps, back in the 30s. And so, there are conservation corps all over the country. There are 15 other conservation corps alone in California. And so it wasn't the model that was going to be drastically different, but the way in which we wanted to do things, and very explicitly, it's in our mission that we are a development and leadership program committed to building a more inclusive community. And when we say priority populations, to us, that means Black, Indigenous, people of the global majority, women of color, LGBTQ+, and queer communities. That's our where we focus recruitment, and those are also groups that have historically been excluded from this type of work and outdoor recreation. ESCC is 3 main programs, which I'll talk about each one. They're all a little bit different. We contract with national parks and forests throughout California. Those contracts are mostly trail work based, since that's how I got my first experience and spent all those years, while working for the National Park Service and the California Conservation Corps. Our first program that I'll talk about in the wilderness is free of cost to participants, and that is supported through foundations and grants. Our range and wildlands crews are paid positions, and like I said, those are mainly public land agency fee-for-service contracts. So that is a job that folks come and do for the summer. We have crews that work. I know that this was a debate in the early stages of ESCC. I wanted to give it a geographic sort of home base, a connection to a place. And so in Eastern Sierras, where I've lived 20 years now, but we do work all over California. So we have crews from the Klamath and Shasta Trinity, all the way down to the Los Padres. We work in our backyard, Sequoia and Kings, here in the Inyo. We were part of the construction crew that built the new trail down to the bottom of Rainbow Falls, if anyone has been there recently. We got to work we have worked and will continue to work in Lassen Volcanic and also the El Dorado National Forest. So our crews are getting around, and it is summer seasonal. So At this point, we just work mainly, I would say, May through September, October. But maybe moving forward, we'll have year-round programming potentially. So our sort of introduction program is this In the Wilderness, and it is affinity based. So it's women in the wilderness, it's queers in the wilderness. These are small cohorts, 6 to 8 participants led by 2 seasoned trip leaders. These are 8 days, and we do an introduction to backpacking, introduction by having them hike about 40 miles. And in that trip is a visit to one of our crews that's working in the field. So it's a backpacking trip. We hook in with one of our ESCC crews, and that cohort gets to live and work and get that firsthand experience, you know, with a trail crew. There is no previous experience required for this, and we cover all prohibitive costs. So transportation, gear, training, food is all included on this trip. So this is our very first one, and this is right on top of Kearsarge Pass. I planned for our very first trip a Cross Sierra hike. So from Onion Valley, we hike to Rhodes End and Cedar Grove. I think that this experience is really unique, and I really wanted to dive into what it was like for one of our participants. And so I'm going to read through a series of their journal excerpts. And again, this is a program where this might be the first time ever that they go on a hike or carry this much weight, go backpacking. So these are words of one of our participants. Day 2. We had our first hike today. It was brutal. We are in high elevation, the packs are heavy, and it was uphill. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to pass out. Day 3. I cried. They asked what I was hoping to accomplish there, and the tears just flowed out. Then another participant cried, and then another. I was vulnerable. It was beautiful. These past days are the toughest I've ever physically pushed myself. My body's aches, and it's cold. I miss the comfort of home, but I need this. I'm grateful for this. Mother Nature is a force not to be taken lightly. We are at our mercy, but my courage is strong. These other women are amazing. Day 4. I'm astounded at how far I can go even after I'm tired. I'm learning just how resilient I am. Day 5. We've arrived with the trail crew yesterday. They've been away from the front country for 2 months. I was surprised to see so many women out here doing this tough work. It's inspiring. I began to be more present with the sounds of the trickling rivers and the lights of the twinkling stars. Day 6. I was using the facilities and a deer walked right across my path. It was majestic. We've been bathing in freezing cold rivers. I can't think about it too much. I just have to throw myself in. It's such a thrill. I'm grateful to be here. I love this. Day 7. We stayed up a little bit later last night. I ran a gratitude circle and it was lovely. My tent mates are the best. They wake me up in the morning and they let me sleep in the middle when I'm afraid. It was bittersweet to leave the trail crew behind. I think I'm going to try and join ESCC next year. Day 8. I'm back home. I cried so hard in our final closing circle. It's tough to be vulnerable, but I've been learning how important it is. It's getting easier the more I do it. Also, it's amazing how close you can get to people in only 8 days. I miss them already. I never really fit into many places, but up there, everything clicked. For one of the few times in my life, I didn't feel like an outsider. I want to do more of this work. I need to go back. And that's words of one of our 2019 Women in Wilderness participants, V. And so, sort of in the design of this, as I was trying to plan it out, as someone who had never done anything like this and didn't think that I would ever do it again, someone can join us for one of these in the wilderness trips. They can come and join us for a trail cruise season the following summer. They can then join one of our technical trail crews, which is a leadership and development program, and come back to lead a trip for us, become a supervisor at a different conservation corps, become a Forest Service employee. It's designed with a direct pathway to a career for anyone that wants to do it, enjoys it, and decides they would like to pursue that. So sort of our introduction trail cruise is what we call the range crew program. Right now, this crew mainly works out of Sequoia Kings Canyon. It's 8 to 12 weeks. All our programs are fully immersive. So they live and work in the park that entire time. Even on weekends, they're together with their crew. No previous trail work experience is required. They get to learn the basics from the beginning. We do a couple-week orientation, and members receive wilderness first aid, mental health resilience trainings. We go through topics of the PCTA trail skills curriculum. And then there is a nightly curriculum program throughout the season. So not only do they get to work and learn the skills of becoming a trail crew worker, but also there's a curriculum component as they are out there. Same, these are the words of one of our participants, and this is a person who had been looking for this type of work, hadn't really found it, came across us and applied. And Cassie has gone on to complete other Conservation Corps programs and is about to start their second season as a Forest Service firefighter. So I know like slides with words, but I'm going to go ahead and read this one as well. A big part of the beauty I experienced was through the hard, hands-on, laborious work and the people who were a part of it. Ending a workday covered in dirt from head to toe, Cold Creek bathing with no soap, knowing that trails are now accessible to the public again, or more accessible because of the long hours of dripping sweat, aching muscles, and frustration. Delirious songs, jokes, laughter, and quality time we put in. Starting out as a crew of complete strangers, ending up as a family, we built a community from scratch, began to grasp the concept of what a community actually is, and the importance of being an active member in it. We found our place out there with each other amongst the trees and wilderness, under the blazing sun, pouring rain, and heavenly stars. It wasn't just a job. It was a conscious decision to be an active member of the community we built, to care for each other, to not take the lazy way out, to get the most out of an experience we never thought would happen in our wildest dreams, to have people recognize who you are as you shine, build you up if you're crying, to be held accountable to that best version of yourself and living out the dreams you have as a Corps member and in life. So that is Cassie. And then sort of this is our third tier of programming. So folks who have Conservation Corps experience, not just through ESCC, but any Conservation Corps anywhere, our Wildlands crews. And Wildlands is Wilderness Immersion, Leadership and Development. These are Conservation Corps alumni-based crews. They've already have previous Corps work. These are 6-person crews that rove around the state working on technical trail work projects. At the same time, these are all folks who have an explicit goal to facilitate youth development in their future. And so we pair technical projects with a leadership and development training program. These crews camp for the entire duration of the season. So same, it's a fully immersive program. All members spend the entire season together. We operate what we call a leader of the week model. And so under the guidance of the crew supervisor, these members develop their own crew development roadmap throughout their season. Each member in real time gets practice in how to run a camp, how to run the crew. They receive real-time feedback so that they are better prepared to go into that supervisory position. So leader of the week means they're supervising the trail work, the chores in camp. That means that they have to plan and budget and order the food for the week. And it's never a good idea to run out of food in a trail crew camp. It also is not a good idea if you go over budget. So they have to figure that out. Again, with some help and guidance. They plan and design the nightly curriculum classes. So not only do they need to be proficient in, say, like map reading and navigation, but they get to practice how to teach that to someone who has never looked at a map. And then we still have to get a job done. So there's the trail work quality and quantity. They have to work with the direct supervisor, the partner agency staff to make sure the trail project gets done. And that also includes safety meetings, logistics, equipment. And so they evaluate themselves, and they also receive feedback from each member of the crew so that they get that real experience and trail knowledge through the technical projects that we complete, as well as all the soft skills for when they're mentoring a group of young folks. And then here are just a few more examples of our technical trail work. So this is actually on that Devil's Post Pile trail to the bottom of the falls of Rainbow Falls. This is on the King Creek Trail. So, you know, we do a lot of dry stone masonry. And this is on the Bumpus Hell Trail in Lassen Volcanic National Park. This is our 5th anniversary. So we have served just about 100 youth and young adults. 38, so 40%-ish have continued on in some sort of outdoor resource work. They've done another season or worked for another agency. 16 have promoted to some sort of public lands leadership position. So our goal of providing those experiences are in a very real way changing the faces of the folks that work for our public lands agencies. And without an investment in that, we're not going to continue to protect it. And so there has to be a way to pass those torches. The way that we do that are through our 3 objectives, what we call access, engagement, and extension. And so getting folks outside and addressing the barriers that keep them from this type of job opportunity or even going on a backpacking or hiking trip. And so the access is in the gear we provide, transportation that we cover, the leadership and technical support, the expertise that our crew leaders bring to the field to our members and participants. We facilitate engagement at every level of our programming. You can see how immersive all 3 of our programs are. We want each group of members or participants to sort of be in the same level of experience and leadership so that each of them can grow. And then extension. So this tenet of ESCC is entirely focused on carrying that experience forward. So each year we have an annual In the Wilderness reunion. So all cohorts are invited so that they can connect with alumni. They have that shared experience, they can network, and then also that is a track of recruitment, so they can share that experience and share with their friends, you know, this opportunity that they had through ESCC. And then, like I explained, you know, that the track of our programming is designed so that there's a pathway to continue to learn, to develop leadership skills and advance in this field. ESCC definitely is, you know, we recognize that the experiences with the natural world have historically not been accessible to everyone. But everyone does belong in the outdoors and deserves to have a community in this space that reflects the culture and communities that all our participants come from. I also wanted to quickly mention a local partnership. You know, we work with the Backcountry Horsemen of California and closely with the Inyo National Forest. For 2 summers, ESCC has hired a packer intern, and this person is able to work directly with Michael Morse and Lee Rozier to supply the crews that are working throughout the Inyo. We will be offering this this summer as well. And then one of our events that unfortunately was canceled last year, but we hope to bring back this year, if safe to do so, is our annual 0.5K fundraise, not 5K. This is 0.5. And so, you know, if you park at the far end of Vaughn's, you're able to do this race. As you can see, this was our first one that we did a couple years ago in the Liberty parking lot. And you can see that the preferred race gear was flip-flops. And you know, one participant is there in an ankle boot. In 2019, we were able to hold the race at the village. It was less than 1 lap through the village. And so, yeah, this is an event that takes about all of 10 minutes. But hopefully we'll be able to bring that back as one of our fundraisers. You know, even though that we are writing grants and soliciting donations, we get fee-for-service contracts. We're still a nonprofit that has gaps to fill, and this is one of the fun ways that we you know, use to raise money locally. And so look out for that. Hopefully we're able to bring that back in 2021. Okay, and so that is the story of me, the story of ESCC, and information about all our programs. I know that I've got a couple folks here that can, if they would like, share their experience with ESCC, and also happy to take questions. I know that throughout the series, we can do that through the chat, or folks can unmute. I'll turn off the screen sharing, and I can share my info in the chat if anyone would like to contact, or let's see. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. If anybody wants to unmute themselves or throw a question in the chat, I'm sure Agnes would be more than happy to answer it.
I have one, Agnes. Where do most of your youth come from? Do you get any local youth to sign up for your programs?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Not enough. You know, we're definitely still a small and growing nonprofit. You know, ideally, we would sort of be doing road shows at high schools and colleges. Uh, to be honest, a lot of our recruitment right now is sort of word of mouth and social media. You know, but we do accept applications from all over, and that also is part of the intention of why, you know, there wasn't a like I said, there are conservation corps all over California, but there isn't a locally based corps really on the Eastern Sierra. But that's definitely a recruitment pool we hope to tap into more.
Agnes, I don't remember if you mentioned it specifically, but I know that as someone who's worked for your organization, that you've definitely like expanded over the years a lot, like coming in from that first season to just the first Women in the Wilderness trip, and then just like what was it, a month-long wildlands crew to what you have now. Would you talk about kind of how you've expanded that? And then like I guess I don't also understand like even the sustainability aspect of growing and being able to continue to support everything as you do that.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. So yeah, that's sort of a detail I glanced over. You know, as I talked about, yeah, I am still the only full-time year-round employee of ESCC. And so, you know, coming up here on our 5-year anniversary, and many folks here know what it's like to run a nonprofit and the challenges with that. That first year, yeah, we had the all women's trail crew. The next year we doubled, the next year we doubled. We would have doubled again if not for COVID. And so here we are in 2021, and we are on track to have multiple, you know, we believe that we can safely bring back our in the wilderness trips. Those are, we'll see, you know, we're scheduling those for later in the summer, but we're planning on 3 trips. We'll have our crew in Sequoia Kings as the range program. And we are planning on 3 wildlands technical crews. And so those crews will be all over California. 1 crew will be in Sequoia Kings Canyon. 1 crew will be here in our backyard working on the JMT. And then 1 crew will be roving around mostly to all those different locations. The El Dorado, the Inyo, Devil's Postpile, Los Padres National Forest. And so basically going from that first season where we had a 1-month wildlands program, we're looking at 3 crews with 4 months worth of programming for just wildlands. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it looks like we have a question in the chat from Sally. You and your program are very inspiring, Agnes. Her question is, do you get funding as an NGO or mostly via agency contracts?
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Sally, for the question. I would say the majority of our funding is those agency contracts, fee for service, through the Forest Service and the Park Service. But it doesn't cover all of our costs. And so, as I mentioned, you know, that gear that we want to provide for everyone is expensive. And so what we don't want is to offer a job and then say, by the way, you also need to buy $2,000 worth of this backpacking gear. So that gear has to come in. We have vehicles, we have, you know, expenses. that we fundraise for, and so me is that solo person at the top at the moment, and I will get help at some point. You know, I've also become, you know, I've taken a crash course in grant writing and fundraising, and you know, kind of wear all those different hats as development director and social media coordinator. But the majority is fee for service. We definitely need more.
I have a question for you, Agnes. So you know, diversity and inclusion is so important, and it's been something that's been lacking. But looking into the future, how do you see that becoming more? I mean, obviously your program is providing that opportunity, but how can it be more universal? How can we get more of that inclusion and diversity involved in experiencing the wonderful outdoors?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. You know, it is one of those things that the DEI world is pretty small still, and as folks start to become aware of it, you know, it's also sort of become this like hip thing, right? Folks are making statements, or it has to have action behind it though. And so I think that that's where with ESCC, we get a following. Folks are finding us because of the ways of our messaging and how that's different, because of the ways that really it's leading with that inclusion piece. And so if it's not a welcoming space, it's not going to be, the buy-in isn't going to be there. And so looking at that, you know, what is very simply, you know, like what's on your social media, what's on your website, how does someone, you know, even locally here in Mammoth, like at the visitor center, how many different languages are things translated into, or that messaging, what languages is that translated to? I think it's a too slow process, but the point is all of those actions or small actions, just, you got to start somewhere. And definitely, you know, like I put a lot of emphasis on how our program is designed for folks that want to move up in that pathway. But also, if you never go backpacking again, you have that experience, whether it was the 8 days or 8 weeks, and how you live together in community, how, yeah, that you'll bring along to wherever it is that you end up working. Yeah, we could talk for another hour on that subject alone. That'll be the part 2.
Agnes.
Chelsea or Stacy, you want to add anything to that?
Well, I want to ask you to talk a little more about why you, like, what makes ESCC different than other conservation corps? You know, you took off on your own, and I think your program is really unique from other corps, and I think that'd be great to hear more about. It's like, what makes it unique, what your hope and intention is for continuing that difference.
Great. Yeah, sure. So, you know, again, it's obvious that this is also very personal. So in all that time that I was working for the National Park Service and the California Conservation Corps, I didn't have a lot of role models and mentors that were representative of the identities that I have. It just wasn't there. It still isn't there. And so, 20 years of working in this industry, and like I was trying to explain with Jeff, like it's moving too slow. Like I am still one of only 5 or 6 women that have worked as a trail crew supervisor in Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park. So in our intention and mission, it's not to exclude anyone, but that recognition of groups that have historically been underrepresented is who we target recruitment on. And so that's where it starts with our language, our messaging, and how folks come into our program. And so that's the application process, that's preseason conversations, that is orientation, and then throughout the season. And also we have an emphasis on affinity spaces. And so our women in the wilderness is that, our queers in the wilderness is for LGBTQ plus identifying folks. This season, we will be bringing the first LGBTQ plus trail crew to Sequoia Kings Canyon National Park, led by someone in that community, because in that space is also, something. There's also a thing about it not only has to be welcoming, but it wasn't necessarily designed or is a place that had that in mind, or has been it wasn't designed with us in mind. And so those changes or those spaces provide an opportunity for folks to feel comfortable in a place that wasn't designed with them in mind. I know you got more to add. Chelsea Taylor here is one has been with us since the beginning. So
Yeah, well, I think the other thing that you do is through the design of the programs, it's not only do you use the language that welcomes so many, priority populations, but also you design programs to make sure that people have a path forward, that it's friendly, I mean, in so many ways, to me, that's the welcoming part of it. Is it's not just, you go on this 8-day trip, thanks for coming, thanks for playing, we'll see you later, but it's, you want to stay involved? Well, come on, let's figure this out. And we're not just going to throw you to the lion's den. We're going to give you the skills and the opportunity to figure out, what it looks like to make a meal plan, or work with project partners, or report, or focus on mentoring other people. And like research shows how important it is to have a mentor, and how big of a deal. I mean, how many of you maybe remember your first time going outside, or your grandpa taking you fishing, or your dad pointing out the birds, or whatever that first early experience was. The mentorship is really important. And so my connection to ESCC is predates ESCC. 2013, I too joined the California Conservation Corps Backcountry Trails program, and through a funny, things get weird out there, and our supervisor left, and Agnes became my supervisor. And that was 8 years ago, and I have not entirely left the Eastern Sierra, and I have not left land management. And while I am white and a person of privilege in that way, my relationship with Agnes has helped bridge a gap, bridge my relationship to the outdoors to be supportive and focused on, integrating as much change and difference in these spaces. In 5 years, hell yeah, where are the balloons? There's some on here, I think. Here we go.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Do we have any more last minute questions?
I have one more for you, Agnes. I work for Inyo County. I run an outdoor program for underserved youth. And most of the kids that I deal with have never even been on a hike, right? And they live right here in Bishop or Inyo County. And I'll get in touch with you later on, but I'd love to have you speak at a couple of our groups that we have. So, some of the older kids, the high school kids, see if they'd be interested in starting a career, outdoor career this way.
Great. Yeah, let's definitely make sure we connect. I would love to do that, and I think there's definitely room and ways to collaborate, even for folks that are under 18, and in fact, those are some of the grants that we sort of have hanging out there. There are definite potentials, so I'd be happy to connect with you on that. That'd be great.
Hi, Agnes. This is Stacy. My computer decided to do a restart and update in the middle of the presentation, but I heard everything, and as a board member of ESCC, I'm constantly inspired by you, and I hope everybody listening just feels the amazingness and drive and vision that Agnes has for this program. But I, especially to the last speaker, I think what's so important for all of us to really think about and get behind in Eastern Sierra communities is that we need investment in both public lands and people. And the state is talking a lot about access for all to public lands, and programs like ESCC are a bridge to do that, a real on the ground human way to do that. And Agnes is leading on this. So I hope you'll all join me in supporting her and ESCC's work however we can. And thanks, Agnes. Great presentation tonight.
Great. Thanks, Stacy. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Agnes. We really, really appreciate it. Awesome. And thank you all for joining us too. We'll be back next week for another presentation with Jasper Gibson, who's a adventure ski photographer. So thank you again.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you everyone so much.
Bye, everyone.